So, mixed views about mixing vaccines. Professor of Public Health at the University of the West Indies, Peter Figueroa, shares his thoughts. Morning, Prof. Welcome to Smile Jamaica, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure, sir. Before we talk about mixing them, sir, are they different because of the manufacturing, or are different things? Because you hear Moderna, you hear Pfizer, the one that we have, AstraZeneca. Are there different in the things that are in them?
It's what we call the platform. It's the approach that is taken to developing the vaccine. So the Pfizer and the Moderna, they are nanoparticles. That's extremely small active materials, just the messenger RNA that is put in a lipid, a fat covering, and so that is a platform. It's a messenger RNA, whereas the AstraZeneca now uses the adenovirus as a vector. In other words, the adenovirus causes a common cold, but what they do is they just use the shell of the adenovirus, take out any active material, and just put in a little vaccine in there, like RNA, and that goes into the body. So it's just the way they construct the vaccine that is different in different platforms, but the end result is the same, a safe and effective vaccine to protect you against COVID.
Okay, I figured at some point we were going to get to this point where we were talking about mixing vaccines, because I'd always wondered if it was something that could be done. What are your thoughts on this, Prof?
Well, the first thing is, remember the vaccine trials are done with the same vaccine. So, you give one dose of AstraZeneca and a second dose of AstraZeneca, or you stick with the Pfizer. And the reason for this is because the trials, all the studies that have been done, the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, this is the way the trial is done. Mm-hmm. And in the phase 3 trial, you actually test the vaccine in 40,000, anywhere between 30 to 40,000 people. So we know, based on those trials, that this is a safe and effective vaccine. Now, the challenge that we're facing is because there's not enough vaccine to go around right now, and most of it is being monopolized by the developed countries. The question arises now, can you mix and match different types of vaccines? They're all COVID vaccines. They're doing studies, and the preliminary results are encouraging that if you do mix, take one AstraZeneca and take one Pfizer, it works equally well. Yes.
And I've heard some folks say maybe even better because it boosts antibodies. Have you heard that?
Yes, they do. Looking at the AstraZeneca and the Pfizer, they've done AstraZeneca first, Pfizer second, Pfizer first, AstraZeneca second. And whichever way they do it, it appears to boost the antibodies more.
Does that mean that you wouldn't mix one with Moderna?
No, it probably means that you can, because Moderna and Pfizer are very similar. But all I'm saying is that the studies right now are preliminary results. Mm-hmm. I think the study that I saw out of the UK, only 110 persons were in each study group, as against 20,000.
Right. Why is J&J a one shot and everyone else is a two shot?
Well, it's how they have constructed it. It's interesting. It is a one shot, but I suspect that if you get a booster with J&J, then the protection will be fuller than just one shot of J&J. But one shot of J&J gives you a very good protection.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the booster, which I want to talk to you about eventually. But let me ask if you think I mean, based on your initial thoughts when we opened, where you were saying the platform is pretty much the same, although there are slight variations in each shot. Was there, you think, any short-sightedness on the part of those conducting the trials? I mean, is this something we should have thought about sooner? I mean, I know we were racing against the clock, given how COVID was spreading, but is this something that you think we ought to have done initially, or even thought about doing initially before we ran into these problems with shortages?
Well, remember, many people are concerned, how did we produce these vaccines so quickly?
But they were in production before, no?
Well, yes, the coronavirus against SARS the vaccine against SARS had been produced. And once the Chinese actually decoded the genomic sequence of the virus, then they were able just to change the vaccine against SARS to produce a vaccine against COVID. But you still had to go into the animal trials and 3 different phases of human trials. And that is what was done last year in 2020. So it would not have been possible to do the mixing and the matching before you had completed the trials with the vaccines. And once you completed them, you needed to start rolling them out. So in fact, they're on a very fast agenda. The fact that they're mixing and matching now, they're doing trials for that. They've been going at lightning speed.
Yep. Professor, as has been said, it seems like the vaccine came out quite quickly. Normally, how long would a vaccine take before it is given to someone?
It could take 5-10 years to come out. But in fact, remember, we had the SARS outbreak in 2005. So that was 15 years earlier that they started working on the COVID vaccine. The actual technology for the messenger RNA vaccine started in the 1990s with basic scientific research. And it wasn't until 20 years later that they were really getting the technology refined.
All right, so straight up answer, sir. You have a problem if it's mixed or no?
I don't have a problem if it's mixed, but that's not the first choice. The first choice is to stick to a first and second dose of the same vaccine in the event that you simply cannot get the same vaccine, then we would have to consider mixing.
And where are we now with that? The WHO is reviewing. I'm surprised that the test groups are so small.
With the mixing and the matching?
Yeah.
Yes, because these are just preliminary studies and they may have to expand. These are preliminary results.
Okay.
More studies with larger numbers.
So what does the timeline look like, you think, before the WHO issues its findings?
Well, you know, life is overtaking us because the COVID pandemic, you notice we've had 4 different variants of concern. You know, starting with the Alpha isolated in the UK, the Beta in South Africa, the Gamma in Brazil. And each of these variants really, they showed that they were more transmitted than the regular original virus that causes COVID. We now have the Delta that caused that massive surge in India, and it's already now in many countries in Southeast Asia. It's increasing the number of cases, and it prevented the end of the lockdown in the UK, and it circulated in the US. So it's only a matter of time before it comes to Jamaica. And because we have so few people vaccinated, we are at serious risk of having another surge once Delta gets here.
Yeah. Final question from me, Professor. One of the issues recently was that you're supposed to get the second one. You're supposed to get the second one between 8 and 12 weeks. And the minister had said, all right, if you don't get it 8 weeks, you can get it at 9 or 10 or 11. What happens if you don't get it between 8 and 12 weeks? Do you still get the second one, or you have to kind of start over from scratch, for want of a better phrase?
You don't need to start over because your body, your immune system does not forget the first dose. So if you don't get your second dose between 8 to 12 weeks, then you try and take it as soon as possible thereafter. So if it goes to 14 weeks, even 16 weeks, some people in the original trials didn't get their vaccine until 16 weeks. So it will be safe and you will get a very effective immune response. It's just that you're not as well protected the further you go with just one dose. You have good protection, but you want full protection with the 2 doses. But there's no danger to you, there's no risk, and your body does not forget the fact that you had the first dose.
All right,
Okay.
thank you, sir. Thanks for what you've been doing, and thanks for really just helping out our country. God bless you,
And
sir.
thanks for encouraging people to get vaccinated. As soon as
Yes.
the vaccine is available,
Yes.
it's really critical. And stay safe. Let's not forget the Delta is there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Prof.
Professor of Public Health at UMona, Peter Figueroa.
Off the Shelf with 7-year-old author Eden Emmanuel Williams is next.